Saturday, September 10th has 5 Breeders' Cup Challenge Series win and you're in races with 2 more on Sunday. The 2 stateside races come to us from Kentucky Downs with the FanDuel Turf Sprint, a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, as well as the Kentucky Turf Cup, a win and you're in for the Longines Turf. All winners will receive entry fees paid by Breeders' Cup, a $10,000 award to the nominator, and a $10,000 travel allowance for horses stabled outside of Kentucky. Coverage kicks off at 5 p.m. Eastern on CNBC with our own Matt Bernier on the team. And the other Challenge Series races come to us from across the pond with 3 stakes from Leopardstown on Saturday, September 10th, and the Curragh with 2 more on Sunday, September 11th. Tune into FanDuel TV for coverage and to learn more. Go to breederscup.com. Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show for Friday, September 9th. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, no longer in the Brooklyn bunker. Was back there for about a hot second before heading down to Nashville, where I sit now. Was over at Kentucky Downs yesterday for my maiden voyage. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. We've got a great show for you covering racing action from across the nation. We've got Woodbine, the nation and North America, really. We've got Woodbine, their big weekend coming up next week. We'll be talking about the last 4 races up there with Matt Vagvolgyi and Drew Coatney. We're going to be talking Monmouth with Dallas Baker and Nick Tammaro. We will be looping in some Kentucky Downs action, as noted, with Jack Jenkins. And there was no better way to start off this show than a visit from Nick Luck, who will talk about the Queen, Her Majesty, the Queen Elizabeth II's legacy, and also tell us a little bit about Irish Champions Weekend and the win and you're in action for the Breeders' Cup happening there. We're going to get to it all right after this. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Canterbury Park, playing the largest Breeders' Cup betting challenge qualifier of the year on Thursday, September 15th, the Big Ten BCBC handicapping contest at Canterbury Park. You can play online or through ExpressBet or TVG. It's a $2,000 live bankroll, $1,000 entry fee. 11 BCBC entries plus cash are to be awarded, and 100% of entry fees will be returned to players. The date, Thursday, September 15th. For more information on the contest, visit canterburypark.com. And also, don't forget that the weekend of September 17th and 18th, the nation's first and longest continuously running live bankroll handicapping contest, now in its 26th year. The Dog Days of Summer contest will be happening only on track at Canterbury Park. In that one, you can win entries to the National Horse Players Championship. For more information, visit canterburypark.com. First up on the show, a man we had booked to come on to speak about Irish Champions Weekend, and we'll get to that, but given the news of the last 24 hours or so, we'll have a different topic that we're going to start off with. He's actually coming to us not too far from where I'm sitting in Nashville right now, in for the weekend to cover Kentucky Downs and the Breeders' Cup implications for our friends at NBC, where you've enjoyed his work over the years. You've also enjoyed his Nick Luck Daily podcast. I think it's the most downloaded horse racing podcast in the world from what I can calculate. He is, of course, Nick Luck. Nick, how are things?
Hello, Peter. Obviously, coming here in difficult and sad circumstances. Always good to talk to you here on this podcast. And when I left Heathrow Airport yesterday, we knew there were grave concerns about the health of Her Majesty the Queen. And then I was on a British Airways flight that was without communication to the ground, and the captain gave the news about half an hour before we landed in Nashville. It was the mood right around where I was reflective of the mood of the nation, the Commonwealth, and indeed the world, and one that is felt particularly keenly in our very small corner of it, Pete.
Her Majesty the Queen was many things, not least from our selfish perspective on a horse racing media network, the most famous horse racing fan in the world. And we'll get to what some of the implications might be. But I just want to start off with my own personal feelings, which are I'm really surprised. I mean, look, I'm not surprised that I'm sad. I think I'm surprised at how sad I am and this very unstable world the stability that she provided, and the role that she played in world events. I mean, how much is this affecting the mood of the country right now, from what you're hearing from people back home?
I think it runs twofold. This, first of all, as a long-serving monarch, as the longest-serving monarch, Queen Elizabeth is all as a head of state that most of us can remember. So that in itself is going to have a destabilizing effect when she dies. And second, there was enough that you saw to know that people would cleave to her personally as well as a figurehead. And what you did see beneath what had to be necessarily inscrutable and, somewhat, distance the wrong word, but restrained, often came. So what you saw beyond that necessary restraint and inscrutability often came in the confines of a racetrack, right. which is why I think people in horse racing feel it quite so dearly.
And I think the connection to Ascot to going there over the years and just seeing what she specifically meant to that event and how it feels from an outsider perspective, like in some ways the sport in the UK revolved around her. Is that too strong?
It's really incalculable, the impact that she had, because she was the sport's number one fan in terms of profile for so long. You could argue there's any amount of influential people and leaders and dignitaries that became attracted to the sport because it was her passion, and that is a passion that may well have transmitted to a number of people in the UK and around the world who didn't subsequently go on to have any ownership, but simply have inherited that fandom because the Queen being involved in racing has put racing more in the public eye than it might otherwise have done.
Doesn't seem that ostensibly her passion for the sport is necessarily shared by closest family members. I think that's safe to say. What does it mean? It's so hard to get into what she meant to racing in England, and it's probably even harder to talk about where racing goes from here. But what are your early thoughts on either of those topics?
Well, racing will continue much as it has continued. It is not as though she was particularly involved in the warp and weft of running the sport, though she had great influence at Ascot, and I've talked about her more global influence. But you're right insofar as that it's going to be asking an awful lot of the monarch now, King Charles, to carry on with the same sort of enthusiasm and vigor. That said, I do feel that he and his consort, Queen Consort Camilla, will understand the importance to the Queen and will want to continue to a greater or lesser extent. And certainly Camilla, who was then the Duchess of Cornwall, now the Queen Consort, has had a number of horses run in her own name and colours in recent seasons and has shown an increasing interest in the sport. Of course, also Her Majesty the Queen's daughter, the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, she's a very keen equestrian, and she will know better than anybody what this meant to her own mother, and Princess Anne's daughter, Zara Tyndall, likewise. So there are elements within the family who are horsey enough and are interested enough to make you think that there will be some level of continuity.
I'd like to think that the certainly Royal Ascot itself, I mean, it's a meaningful part of her family legacy in a way that, hopefully the event won't be diminished with her passing. Is that a reasonable hope?
I think it's a reasonable hope. I mean, you've got to remember that the sport of horse racing, the modern sport of horse racing, when I say modern, I mean as distinct from medieval, was founded by Charles II. Queen Anne, it was her idea that the horses should race on Ascot Heath in the early 18th century. Edward VII, at the beginning of the 20th century, was a monarch who was very keen on racing. They haven't all been. It's too much to expect. But Queen Elizabeth II inherited from her own father a genuine interest, and from her mother a real love of the horse and racing. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, who was an extraordinary figure who was very passionate about steeplechasing as much as she was the flat racing. So she inherited it from both sides of her family, really.
Well, we appreciate your perspective on this, and it's it's odd that something that is so logical that it would happen given the age that she was could feel so earth shaking. But that's how it feels where I sit in a hotel room in Nashville. Anyway.
Yes, and paradoxically, sitting in a hotel room in Goodlettsville, not too far away from you, you're absolutely spot on, and a number of people have said that. And I think that the paradox was that the longer her life continued, the harder it became to imagine her not being there, the monarch, the head of state, guiding the country, guiding the Commonwealth, with a quiet, reassuring presence.
Racing at Doncaster. This was a huge weekend there. Going to be they canceled yesterday. They canceled today. They're not running tomorrow. They will be running on Sunday. A bit of a super card, it sounds like. I would imagine that feels like an appropriate a tribute to at least have a couple of days off in mourning, but at the same time feels like something that she would have wanted for the not to miss a classic on her behalf. Does this feel like an appropriate handling of the situation by the industry?
Feels entirely appropriate to me, Pete. I know that there have been plenty of opinions voiced in the last few hours saying, well, what difference does it make if you have the tribute on Sunday or Saturday? And I think people just need to take a pause, take a breath, take the opportunity to let it sink in for the country. It's not going to do anybody any harm. It's not going to do the nation any harm just to have another day or two to reflect. So, period of quiet reflection never does any of us any harm. And you take a long walk, go out with the dog, play with your kids, whatever. You don't need horse racing tomorrow. It can wait till Sunday.
There will be racing in Ireland that we do want to talk about while we have you here. Obviously you're very connected with the Breeders' Cup, and there's 5 Breeders' Cup winning you're in races in Ireland. And maybe a place to start is how important this meeting in particular, these meetings this weekend, has become as pointers for the Breeders' Cup over the last several years. It feels as important really as any European meeting that we have in terms of sending horses over here. How did that come about? Is it a quirk of the calendar, or is there more to it than that?
Well, 3 reasons really. They consolidated Irish Champions Weekend. It was disparate fixtures that came together with Leopardstown and the Curragh going on the same weekend, converging big money races. Timing wise, perfect stepping stone. Really, now horses might take another run in between this and Breeders' Cup. If you're Aidan O'Brien, you might take another 2 or 3, and he has done with some horses over the years. Think of Found and others. But generally speaking, it's a perfect springboard point. It sits far enough away that you could run here and still run at the ARC meeting. You could still run here and run on Champions Day. You can still run, So it's a bit of a gateway to the rest of the year, in truth, and the O'Brien factor as well. We know how much Aidan O'Brien venerates the Breeders' Cup, and latterly Dermot Weld as well, and they're going to love having runners at this fixture and love having runners at Breeders' Cups.
I'd love to get some thoughts from you on the specifics of these races, either in terms of what you see a main storyline as, or horse you're particularly interested in for these races this weekend. Let's start with the Irish Champion Stakes. Some pretty interesting runners turning up here.
Some very interesting runners. This is the rematch from the Coral Eclipse between Vedeni and Mishriff. Mishriff doesn't have to give him quite so much weight because we're deeper in the season. Doesn't have to give the younger horse as much weight. And the betting, I think, it exaggerates what was between them in the Coral Eclipse. But what it probably is doing is factoring the potential for Vedeni to improve yet further, the younger horse, whereas the received wisdom is that Mishriff is as good as we know he is now. The interesting point, though, is given that he was tardily away in the Coral Eclipse and he was much slicker when he was well beaten by Baid at York last time, it just does make you think that evens and 7-2, the difference between their prices is a little big. And John Gosden, John Thady Gosden have gone for Colin Keane on Mishriff as well. Vedeni is the right favourite, but I don't think he deserves that big a break over the rest of his market rivals. And of course, how close would his own compatriot Ernesto have got to him in the Prix de Jockey Club if he'd had any kind of a trip? Now, Vedeni won by 4 or 5. So you could say, well, but I think Ernesto would have finished a good second with a trip and has since come out and won the Grand Prix de Paris quite easily. So again, I think Vedeni's a short enough price.
Mishriff, in terms of the Breeders' Cup, we've had many different answers to this question of the people I've asked. Which race do you think is the more likely target for him, the Turf or the Classic?
If you'd asked me before last weekend, I'd have said if he was coming to the Breeders' Cup, they might have rolled the dice and shoved him in the Classic. Now, if you're gonna take a little bit of a punt, I know he's won on dirt, albeit different dirt in Saudi Arabia. Are you going to take that punt against a horse like Flightline? If you think you can win the lion's share of however many $1 million it is on the turf, probably not. So if you're asking me now, I'd say maybe the turf is more likely. The trouble is it just stretches his stamina a shade, mile and a half.
We'll see how it turns out on Saturday in the Irish Champion Stakes and what they choose to do. But it'd be great to have that star power, international star power of Mishriff turning up on these shores. So hopefully one way or another we'll get it. Let's talk about the Matron Stakes here next, Nick.
Well, the Matron Stakes is the race that is probably the most interesting one from a Breeders' Cup perspective, because in its 2 market leaders, you have 2 horses who are likely Breeders' Cup bound. It is a win and you're in, not in the mile division, but in the filly and mare turf division, even though it's a mile race. And Saffron Beach for Jane Chapel-Hyam and Holly Doyle is likely to run in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf. Jane doesn't really want her taking on the boys. She'd rather keep her to her own sex. And she does get a bit further than this as well. She's very tough. She's adaptable as regards conditions. And she'll lay down a really good, strong, solid marker as to what Homeless Songs, this 3-year-old, has achieved if she beats her. Homeless Songs we haven't seen since she absolutely marmalized inferior opponents in the Irish 1000 Guineas. It's considered that she needs an ease in the ground, a cut in the ground, not because she can't win on faster ground, but because it's just to kind of keep her structurally in one piece, to use Dermot Well's words. And if she comes to the Breeders' Cup, I would have thought she would come to the mile, Homeless Songs. And he, even though he's got those concerns about ground, he does seem to be fancying the idea of coming to Keeneland. You oughtn't to forget about Tenebrism either, nor Pearls Galore, who's a talented filly on her day. Tenebrism is very good, but, you know, a stiff mile just stretches her.
It'd be fun to be able to see those top 2 in the market from there come over. Hopefully that's going to play.
I think if you're looking at this at the moment, I would think the top 5 in the market would all be possibles to turn up at the Breeders' Cup.
Oh, that's great. I mean, this is racing, just to emphasize for our viewers who might not be that familiar with international racing. This is stuff you want to pay attention to if you're going to be playing the Breeders' Cup in a couple of months' time.
You do. This is an important weekend.
Let's talk about the other win in your in race on Saturday, the KPMG Champions Juvenile Stakes, a short field, but some interesting runners in here. How about this pedigree on the favorite, Nick?
Yeah, this is a really interesting little race. Auguste Rodin is the horse that you're referring to. Colt by Deep Impact. We like that, and we like it a lot. Out of a very good Galileo mare called Rhododendron, which makes him out of a sister to Magical and from one of Coolmore's very best families. Rhododendron herself was a Group 1 winner, a multiple Group 1 winner. And so if this horse inherits any of the family talent, he ought to be very useful indeed. His run at Nace last time when he beat a horse of Joseph's called Shadowed was very good. And the interesting thing is that they were content to let him stride along with the benefit of just the one run under his belt. And they had done on his debut as well. They've been riding this horse positively and prominently in the manner that they think he's a tough horse who stays a distance pretty effectively. Interesting runner. I don't think he wants the ground too soft on that pedigree, but we shall see. He's a very interesting prospect.
Who might make more appeal on softer ground, which it probably will be. We should note there's been plenty of rain in Ireland.
If it turns into a real war, I think Jim Bolger's horse will outrun his odds. A horse called Serious Challenge. He did for one of Aidan's quite well-touted horses, Hiawatha, in a race not as good as this at Galway last time, but he did it in very tenacious fashion. And he's going to have an impact on the race because he's going to get out and get up front and start messing all the others around. I think he's a gelded horse. I think they'll send him, and I think he'll expose any frailties in slightly less hardened horses. I think Serious Challenge is the one that I'd be at the prices. He's currently around about a 7-1 shot.
Could you see some participation from this race in a race like the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf?
Don't see why not.
That would be fantastic. I mean, really, again, short field, but some very interesting runners. Let's pivot to the 2 win-in-your-in races at the Curragh on Sunday, starting with the Flying Five. Some familiar names in here for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Highfield Princess is the horse around whom this race revolves because she's coming here off the back of 2 really impressive wins in Group 1 company. The first of those came over 6.5 furlongs at Deauville when she beat the subsequent impressive Haydock Park Sprint Cup winner Minzal. Nothing not to like about that form. And then she dropped down 1.5 furlongs. You don't see many horses in Europe going 6.5 to 5 at that level and proving equally effective at both distances. Bear in mind, she was finishing second to Space Blues over 7 last year. She's incredibly versatile mare. She's very tough. She's had nearly 30 runs in 2 years, so she can take the racing. And the only surprise was maybe they didn't put her in at Haydock last weekend as well. Probably a good job they didn't. She's the what. If she turns up in the form she was in when she won the Nunthorpe at York, she'll win. But it's a question of whether that's left any kind of a mark. And it's a question now whether, having won twice really impressively on very fast ground, whether she'll come back whether she'll recoil in any way for getting ease underfoot. It was always considered she wanted ease underfoot, but I think now we have to look at her as a very different filly. She ought to be favourite for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint as things stand.
Sounds like a likely runner too.
Yeah, she's a runner. If she's fit, she'll run. But a few of these could as well. I mean, I think A Case of You is almost certainly going to come back. He ran very well in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint last year. I think Emirati Anna, who ran well again the other day at Haydock, I'd say he'll probably come back. I wouldn't be surprised if Romantic Proposal was there, Munista, Razel. They're all horses who could conceivably have a go at the Turf Sprint. Flotus as well.
Let's talk about the other 2-year-old race. We've got the Moyglair Stakes for the 2-year-old fillies, and a big name headlining here in Meditate. Is this race as simple as her?
She's a wonderful filly, I think. She's 4 for 4. They've given her plenty of experience. She won easily at Royal Ascot, and then she came out and won the debutante stakes at the Curragh. The runner-up in that race was Olivia Meralda, who's a pretty smart horse, and she was always, I thought, just toying with her. Although the margin of victory wasn't particularly special, I thought really she was toying with her. My only issue is I don't think she wants the ground too soft. She's a no-nay never, and I think that would play somewhat against her chance, or at least it would make me not want to back her at odds on. And she is up against a once raced, once victorious, impressive on debut sister or half sister to Tarnawa in Tahira. So, and with Dermot Weld's horses turning the corner now, she makes a bit of appeal at the odds.
That's interesting. And again, very likely you think we'd see 1 or 2 out of here come across to these shores. What do you think?
Yeah, quite conceivably. I mean, it's a big year for No Nay Never. He's already done it with Little Big Bear and Blackbeard and this filly Meditate. I would be surprised if Aidan didn't want some No Nay Never representation at the Breeders' Cup. Yeah.
All right. We'll be bothering you much more for your thoughts ahead of the Breeders' Cup. Folks can watch you this weekend covering live from Kentucky Downs. I think you'll have Matt Bernier back in the studio. Are you with Eddie O out there on Saturday? Is that?
Yeah, I think he may even be in town. If he's not, I think he gets in today. So this is as much as I've seen. I arrived here at about 8:30 last night. Central, and obviously I just heard the news, drove here, sat down, preparing material for today's podcast, and obviously I wanted to finish and voice the obituary for Racing TV, which we've just done. So, and then various broadcast commitments. So I'm now going to exit the four walls of this hotel room and go and see what Kentucky Downs is like.
I think that's wise. It's a wild place. I think you're going to really, I can't wait to hear what you think of it, actually. And we'll I'm sure get that perspective on the Nick Luck Daily podcast. And we'll look for that Racing TV tribute. And we'll obviously be looking forward to all the content you're producing on a daily basis. Nick, thank you so much in a busy day and a sad day to take some time out to come and yap with us.
Always. Thanks, Pete.
Good stuff. Thank you, my friend. Horsemen, handicappers, and racing fans won't want to miss a single day of the 7-day FanDuel meet at Kentucky Downs this September. Owners and trainers will compete for the world's richest overnight purses, and horse players will enjoy the best betting opportunities in America with large fields and low takeout. Thanks to the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund, registered Kentucky breds will run for $150,000 in maiden races, with allowance races starting at $160,000. The 17 stakes totaling $10.7 million include 8 graded stakes, where 4 days down with 3 to go at Kentucky Downs, remaining dates being this Saturday and Sunday, the 10th and the 11th, and then next Wednesday, the 14th as well. If you can get there, and I encourage you to do so, you can buy reserved seats at KentuckyDowns.com. Also, a reminder that Sunday is the concluding handicapping contest at Kentucky Downs, part of the 3 contest series, but you can just participate in this one. $800 and loads of prizes. The entries have been huge. You're going to be at least 2 BCBC, 3 NHC, but there's going to be more than that, I'll bet you, just based on the participation. You can play on TVG. You can play on ExpressBet. You can reach out to Brian Skirka at Monmouth Park if you have any questions. He's helping them out with these Kentucky Downs contests. And again, for more info on all this, go to KentuckyDowns.com. Next up on the show, one of the people we turn to when we talk about Kentucky Downs. We're talking about Kentucky Downs more this year on the network than we ever have before. I've really been enjoying it, really like my maiden voyage out to the place yesterday, and wish I was sticking around for the weekend. But alas, got to get back to New York. Too much stuff going on, transitioning back from 2 months away in Saratoga to spend the weekend down here in Nashville, as much as I'd like to. But a man who spent plenty of time down in this part of the world, currently coming to us from another spot in Tennessee. He is Jack Jenkins. Jack, what's going on, man?
Good morning, Pete. How are y'all doing this morning?
I see. I wasn't sure that the print was small enough. I wasn't sure if you were going to troll me with Atlanta Braves stuff. It's getting tight up there in the NL East. How are you feeling?
We're looking forward to it.
You finish the job that you've started here, taking down my Mets, or are we going to dig in and re-rally?
Well, it's September. You know how the Mets are in September. Once the calendar changes, it's
that was like 15 years ago, to be fair, yeah. But it was bad.
Yeah, it's going to be a battle. It depends on the Mets starting pitching, I think, if they stay healthy.
Well, right, and the Scherzer thing hopefully is temporary from a Mets point of view. Even if the Mets are the wild card, they're still the team that nobody wants to play. I contend that.
Oh, no doubt.
We'll see how it turns out. On the racing front, we're in the back half now at the Kentucky Downs meet. How have your first 4 days gone? 3.5, really.
Well, not as good as I'd like for it to be. I started the meet kind of, as we mentioned in the first podcast we done, I was kind of handicapping for some of those closers to do a little bit better than they done. And the course is played, pretty fair and everything, but it hasn't been a lot of closers winning. It's been more speed stalkers types than, Mike Maker, who, usually does well up there. He had a little bit of a chilly year last year, especially starting out, and he's been on fire, and the public's picking up on that. And yesterday, unlike you, I didn't get a chance yesterday. I was driving to Memphis and everything. I didn't get a chance to get too involved yesterday. But looking to fire up for this big weekend here, I may end up there before the weekend's over.
We've got 6 stakes on this card. We're mainly going to be talking about the last 5 of them, which make up an all-stakes pick 5. But we do have the rescheduled Mint Million, which I know you had a quick thought on, that goes as race 5. Let's start there.
Well, this race was redrawn from an earlier card that was canceled because of weather, and there's a couple, that decided to run that wasn't originally entered, and they really could change the outcome of this race. Before, there wasn't a whole lot of speed entered in the race, but now Makers brought down Some Like It Hot Brown, getting Jose Ortiz. The horse was a surprise winner in a 3-horse off the turf, August 26th at Saratoga for New York breds. He was kind of dismissed as the third choice in that race. He showed he can, run on the dirt too, which he rated much more kindly in this previous start on August the 6th at Saratoga. He just completely ran off with Irad. But he comes right back with Jose Ortiz. I look for him to control this race and maybe be tough in here.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. He's a battle-tested performer, that's for sure. This 6-year-old New York bred, and certainly his presence in the race looks to change it to some degree. Any other thoughts on the Mint Million, or should we jump ahead to race number 8, the ladies' turf?
No, it looks like a good betting race. They have Pixelated number 2 with Joel Rosario listed at 5-1. I think he's going to come down off that. The horses. He won this race last year easily with Rosario. I think that really is going to stand out to the betting public. So I almost kind of look for him to maybe go favorite in there.
Might be able to make the market for a runner like Some Like It Hot Brown. Let's pivot ahead to race number 8, which is the Kentucky Ladies Turf for these fillies and mares, 3 and up, going a mile on the turf. We've got a big field of 10 going postward. What do you like in here, Jack?
I landed on the number 3. Hindi Woods is mainly a value play. I could even see her drifting up from that 9-2 morning line. Get Julian Leperoux. Julian's really rode well this summer. Limited opportunities at Saratoga. But he really made the most of it, and he's been riding well here at Kentucky Downs too. I think Hindi Woods I don't think she's going to be that far back. I'm not sure she can set the pocket, but I look for her to really kind of trip out in here, and hopefully make a run at the 2 favorites. The number 1 Delika, who's controlling speed, is coming off the Grade 1 win at the Beverly D at Churchill. And then the number 8, who's going to take plenty of action in here, who chased Delika last time, Princess Grace, with Floron aboard. Those 2, I think, is going to take most of the money in the betting. But I'm hoping Hindi Woods may be able to snatch them late.
I feel the same way. I have Hindi Woods on top. I love the fact that she ran a career best over this course last year, and agree that she could get a good setup. Timeform has it Delika just alone on the lead, but I think there's others in here who could show some speed and keep her honest. I'll probably do a backup line with Delika in case she does get loose, and also with Princess Grace, who did beat Delika in this race last year. But Hindi Woods, I agree, looks like the value, and I think could be interesting and might not be as far back or as compromised as the Timeform US pace projector makes it seem. Let's move on to one of the win and you're in races on this card, the Grade 2 FanDuel Turf Sprint Stakes, another $1 million race for 3 and up, going 6 furlongs on the turf. And you've got a big favorite in here who looks like a clear play if he takes to the course. That's the 12, Arrest Me Red. But I thought there was a wise guy case to be made for the 9, Front Run the Fed, who ran his best career race by far in this race last year. Granted, it was a little boggy, but there is rain in the forecast for Saturday morning. Hopefully it'll clear off by the time we get to the afternoon races. And also, I just thought when you look at closing sectionals and when you look at the cutback for Front Run the Fed, they're both things I think that are going to make him outrun these 15-1 morning line odds. I'm not sure if the 15-1 is accurate or not, but even at anything at 8-1 or higher, I definitely would want to have plenty of Front Run the Fed on my tickets. And yeah, nothing against the 12 Arrest Me Red other than potentially a short price. How do you see this one, Jack?
Yeah, I landed on the number 7 Gregorian Chant as just a real value play here. I think I'm hopeful we get the 10-1 morning line. I was kind of like you. I was a little dubious on this morning line. I just don't see the number 10 Totally Boss going off at 12-1. I think he's going to take much more action than that. And even the number 11 with a hot Saffie Joseph barn, I don't think that horse is going to be 15-1. I do think the number 12, Resmi Red, will be favorite. That's kind of a tough post, but he's going to be out there, right on the lead. So, he should be able to overcome that as the high weight. But I really like Gregorian Chan here. Like I said, as a value play, Phil D'Amato looks like he's been really, setting on this horse and prepping for this race. Gets Jose Ortiz, which, really rides well at Kentucky Downs. He should be able to set a nice little mid-pack trip. And I think he's definitely got the quality to get the job done here. I've always really liked this horse. Super, super classy runner.
Who do you like to go with Gregorian Chant here potentially, or is it really just a singular focus on him?
Yeah, I like him as a value play, but I think you got to use the outside runners. Totally Boss has a big win at Kentucky Downs. He's always right there. He's been a top turf sprinter for the past 3 or 4 years. I've had a nice couple of scores on him in the past. He's a favorite old horse of mine. Chasing Artie's not without a chance, like I mentioned for Ken Ramsey and Saffie Joseph. And you just have to use a Resmi Red in some fashion here if you want to play this pick 5 seriously. With Irad Ortiz and West Ward, it's just hard to chuck. It's hard to chuck that horse as the favorite as much as I want to maybe try to get him out of the exacta or something. You've got to use him in your multi-race bets.
Let's move to race number 10, another win and you're in race. This one, the Kentucky Turf Cup, Grade 2, 1.5 miles. And Jack, we'll throw this back to you for your thought on this one.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see Gufo enter.
Yes.
Quick turnaround, but he's danced all the dances this summer. He's running every big race for turf marathoners that they've carded this summer. Man of War, Manhattan, the UN at Monmouth, the Sword Dancer. I was up there, at Saratoga for Travers Day, and it's just like the way they were betting. It was just one of those things. It was like they know, and they knew he ran well and got the job done. With Rosario, and he's listed as a 7-5 morning line favorite here. It's hard to argue with. He's kind of a win machine. Won almost $2 million. But you have to respect the old man Arklow. This is he's got four career starts at Kentucky Downs. He's been super impressive in a few wins there. Just missed in this race last year. Brad Cox shipped him up to Saratoga, got a nice prep. He ran really well, just missing the Rock Emperor last time, and that was off of a long layoff. And I look for him to move up. Florent's ridden this horse so many times over the years, knows him really well. So I kind of give him a slight edge over Gufo here.
4-6. You're sticking to the top of the market here in the turf.
Yeah, well, there's another horse I'll mention as a value play that I'm going to throw in. Brian Lynch does really well at Kentucky Downs. And Admission Office, number 7, I really think he's been up against it in his last two starts. That turf course last time at Kentucky Downs, I was there that day in person, and it just seems like they were running on a rug that was slipping out from under them. It just looked like so many horses just were not handling that turf course, and they just, they kind of ran around there, and in both of the stakes races, not a lot of passing. And he was last in a slow pace the race before that in a small 5-horse field at Belmont. This horse has relished this distance in the past, and although I wish he had at least a one or two career starts at Kentucky Downs. I mean, you get Hall of Famer John Velasquez. I really think if you could get a horse like this home in this late pick 5, he could really juice things up. And I think he's good enough to get the job done.
4, 8, and 7. I said the number wrong of Gufo before. 4, 8, and 7 for Jack there. I won't really rehash the case on Arklow and Gufo. They're just very, very obvious. I will underline that the trouble that Arklow had last time too. Really, I mean,
if you wanted to throw just one more in, I mean, I think the best out of the Mike Maker trio would be the number 3 Temple with Jose Ortiz. I mean, Mike's is just, his barn's on fire right now, and it's just, it's almost, it's hard to let a guy like that beat you.
Yeah, I'm with you. I actually put Temple on top with the thought of trying to get some value. And I just think that UN was a pretty nice race, closing well, seemingly against the flow. Form of that race working out very well. 3 next out winners. Temple hasn't done his best work at Kentucky Downs, but that could be circumstantial. And when the barn is flying like this, I have no problem including, and I wouldn't be surprised if you get north of 6-1 in this spot, because those other two are going to take so much money at the top of the market.
I do think his Kentucky Downs races are a bit circumstantial, and that, the public's going to see that he's 0-for-3 there. I think it's only going to help his price. A couple of those were at much shorter distances from his best, and you made a good point there.
All right, excellent. So another one to potentially get into the mix as well with Temple. And let's move on to race number 11. This is where my opinions start to get really boring. I'll just throw that out there right now. In the ladies sprint, this grade 3 for 3 and up fillies and mares going 6.5 on the turf. My old favorite, Campanelle, is in here. And I just think if she runs her race, and she's shown she's been adaptable, succeeding at the Group 1 level internationally, I just think if she runs her race, they're all running for second. Is it as simple as Campanelle in the ladies sprint?
Well, she sure looks like a strong A to me also. I had a hard time getting around her. I think she's going to be much shorter than the 8-5. I could see 4-5 on her in here. You get Irad, Wes Ward. She's so good when she runs her best race. And it's just, she sort of looks like you could see her winning this race by 4.
Right.
A couple I will mention, that both 15-1 on the morning line, both really classy mares. The number 6, Toby's Heart, Brian Lynch. She's going to be running late. She always brings her run. Super cool filly to watch run. And I gave a look to the number 7, She Can't Sing, for Chris Block. She's got races that fit here, and she should set a nice little trip here. And those are the 2 I'll be using as backups. Can't fault anyone for using Star Divine or a few others in here, but I'm with you. I think if Campanelle shows up and brings her best, they're going to be running for second.
All right, let's move on to our nightcap, where we've got the grade 2 Franklin Simpson Stakes, 6.5 on the turf for these 3-year-olds. We're paying this all stakes late pick 5 at Kentucky Downs. Jack, how are we getting paid?
Wow, once again, we have another favorite to deal with, this horse has just turned into an absolute win machine. What has he won? 7 in a row, I think, for Christophe Clement, number 6, Big Invasion. Another 8-5 morning line favorite that I could easily see being odds on, Joel Rosario. I mean, this horse has just absolutely done nothing wrong this year.
Anything to run with, or is it as simple as just singling Big?
One thing that did jump out at me, the number 2 for Todd Pletcher. You get Tyler Gaffleon. Chanceau, am I saying that right?
Yeah, Chanceau. Yeah.
Chanceau. He's drawn the rail in his last 3 starts, and this horse just looks to be kind of begging for a cutback. Son of Spottstown. A lot of those are better going short. So I kind of gave him a look on the cutback. Maybe I'll tie those, play a nice 6-2 exacta or something like that. But I'll throw him in on a backup ticket or 2 for the pick 5. He was about the only other one that kind of caught my eye in this spot.
I had a lot of trouble.
Big Invasion's the stuff.
He's past Big Invasion is tricky. The horse is won under a variety of pace scenarios and just looked the fastest horse by some way. I was going to keep it real simple and just try to, get a price in a little bit earlier and then maybe just hit these two favorites on the end. I think it'll have
in a weak 3-year-old turf division, Big Invasion's just been, he's just been a standout this year. And, although he's been sprinting, I'd like to kind of see him maybe even try longer.
I could see it. Certainly didn't run significantly worse in the 7 furlong try at Belmont, but this is a horse that looks very dangerous for a race like the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how much success 3-year-olds have had in that race over the years. Just right here on the spot, but yeah, I mean, I would think he would fit well at Keeneland. 5.5. Sometimes they can close there, so it may be set up well for him.
Jack, thank you so much. Maybe we'll bring you back for one more Kentucky Downs show before it's all said and done. Really appreciate all your contributions.
All right, Pete. Go Braves.
We've been very happy all season to be working with our friends at Monmouth Park. They're back this weekend, first post Saturday and Sunday at 12:15. Also coming up soon at Monmouth, September 17th. They've got the $500,000 Now stakes for 2-year-olds on the turf. Potential clues for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf in that one. That's been a very good race the last couple of years. On these shows, we typically go over the win early pick 5, usually the nation's earliest pick 5. But you also know when we talk about Monmouth Park, we very often talk about fixed odds betting. And today's show is also brought to you by our friends at the Bet Makers with fixed odds betting back in full effect at Monmouth Park. Great returns so far for horse players. 70% of winners paying more on fixed odds than they are on the tote. Fixed odds wagering now available throughout the state. And that's just going to continue to expand when the app gets launched in the not too distant future. This is an exciting new way to bet that really puts the power to get value in your hands, because the odds you bet are the odds you get. You're going to continue to hear a lot more about fixed odds betting opportunities across the In the Money Media Network. Next up on the show, we take a visit north of the border to Woodbine in Toronto, a place where I will be next week. Very excited about Woodbine Mile and all the extra coverage we're going to have for their Super Saturday next weekend. They have moved the Summer and the Natalma often on Sunday back to Saturday. So we're going to have tons of stakes action. Really looking forward to getting back up there. Haven't been since 2019. Little road weary, but Matt Vagvolgyi, before we came on air, was ready to break out the world's smallest violin for me. We'll start by introducing him, a man who travels around the world plenty himself. He's here to help us look at this Woodbine Saturday card through the lens of Race Lens, the powerful handicapping product of which he is a power user. I already said his name, Matt Vagvolgyi. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm good, Pete. I'm good. It's kind of the sleepy days a little bit. Not much going on, but there is, right? You think there's nothing going on, then you start to look around, you find there's quite a bit going on in the horse racing world, quite a bit going on in the football world. So there's no time to pause. So lots to do, and it's tough to be beyond Saratoga and to see potentially Del Mar get washed out, it looks like, this weekend, unfortunately, but hopefully, I don't know, things will change and it'll be better. But yeah, onward and upward, Pete. There's always stuff to look at.
We've got a show planned for Del Mar on Sunday with Billy and Michelle that we're meant to record Saturday. How bad is the forecast looking out there, man?
Again, we'd have to send out the bat signal to our In the Money meteorologist to get a better report, but it doesn't look good. It looks like that hurricane is going to slam Southern California. So again, I don't know. That's not what I do. I'm pretending to be one right now. It's not what I do, but it doesn't look very good.
Not a meteorologist, but occasionally plays one on the In the Money.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's bring in the man we turn to for all things Woodbine. We might have missed a trick not getting him up to Woodbine next week for what I think would be his maiden voyage. Nobody on our network has paid more attention to Woodbine over the course of the last several years than our own business manager, Drew Coatney. Drew, when are you going to make your maiden voyage to the Great White North?
I told you there's a helicopter pad out front. If you want to land, we can find space for that helicopter to come grab me. So yeah, up here in northern Michigan, it's a little hard to make those trips right now. So hopefully when we settle down, we'll be able to find a flight up there to hang out, if it's Woodbine Mile Day or otherwise. So yeah, I'm excited for the next weekend. We're going to have some great racing and even some good races this weekend that I think may be clues into some bigger stakes races later on. I know Cassie has a runner in the nightcap that we'll talk about that could be potentially a powerhouse. So I'm excited and ready to start talking some picks.
We will look to do some bankroll building, that's for sure. Though before I let you go, and we should have gotten the visual aid to go along with this, but you sort of shocked me showing me a picture that you saw from your backyard up there, northern Michigan. Not a place people typically associate with seeing the northern lights, maybe northern Minnesota or something. But yeah, I was shocked. That must have just been so awesome to get to see that far south.
Yeah, we got absolutely lucky. There have been a couple showings that were supposed to happen that never transpired, and just sitting out by bonfire, 11:30 or 12, and boom, here they go. I mean, it's just like something out of this world where you're like, wait, what's going on over the horizon type of thing. And we even got to see one mid-air that shows the curvature of the earth glowing. I mean, it was some neat stuff. And we had the monarch migration happening as well. Which was cool to see some of those monarchs just hanging out on you. And it was a great outdoors day over the weekend for us.
We'll see if some of those butterflies can bring you luck when it comes to the last 4 races at Woodbine on Saturday. And it starts off with race number 7. We've got a stake for 3-year-olds on the turf going 1 mile, the Toronto Cup Stakes, $125,000 in the pot. Matt Vagvolgyi, will throw this one open to you. Anything you see in here that you're particularly interested in vis-a-vis traditional handicapping or the Race Lens product?
I think there's going to be some pace in this race. So I do think there's going to be some speed up front. Especially going a mile on the turf at Woodbine, you want to look for some off the pace type, which again, obvious with pace, but again, more often in terms of the numbers. I went towards the inside, went to the 1 Churchtown. I also looked at the number 6 Luckman as well. 2 horses that have the top 2 triple-digit late pace figures from Equibase. Again, in the True Odds feature there, click on late pace. You'll organize it for you to show who's got the best. Those 2 I like the most. I would say I probably lean a little bit towards the 1 a bit, but there are some things that I like, especially with Luckman, the 6. I love Dice K getting on this horse. So this is the exact horse I love him on. Again, kind of, I don't know if it's a host fail or guest fail, I would say. Wanted to run that number and I just forgot to do it, of looking at the jockey switch to Dice K on a horse that's a sustained runner with a top late pace figure. I'm sure they're outrageous. I could be wrong, but it's the type of horse I like to see him on. I think we'll be a little bit closer. I think the fear is too far off the pace. I think Dice K will put this horse a little bit more into the race. So I do like Luckman quite a bit, but the 1 Churchtown as well. You look at Atfield, 30% off a win, $3.90 ROI there. And he's also 22% in stakes races this year. So those are going to be the A's for me. I'm also going to back up with the 2 as well. Mannix, again, I think probably better races are on synthetic, but I think fits here on the turf. And then I'm also going to throw in a bomb that's going to be towards the front end, which is the 7 Day Tripper. Again, not in love with speed in this race, but this horse has proven to get to the front end, sustain hot fractions, and stay. So I do like that. We'll have that as a B. So 1 and 6 A's for me, 2 and 7 on the B line.
And remind me, the top pick came at the 6, though, not the 1.
I'd probably put let's put the 6 as a topic. Probably gonna get a better price on the 6 than I am on the inside. And I'd lean. It's very tough though. I'd say 1-6 in terms of your betting. I'm going to group those 2 together. But if I had to pick, I'd take the 6.
Gotcha. The old feet to the fire trick. Drew, let's bring you in for your thought on race 7.
Yeah, I love some of those angles, Matt, that you were going with that got my eye drawn to some horses. But I'm actually top pick the number 7 Day Tripper. Did some replay work, and I think the light bulb went off on turf, right? You see about a dozen maiden races and then finally breaking the maiden over the turf on this surface, the 1-turn outer mile, and did it absolutely professionally. Go back and watch that replay 3 back. this horse took back from the loose leader. So you see a bunch of ones in the PP lines, actually stalked a loose leader. And then as if like a workman-like, just carried on and continued to run well, and then back that up again with an optional claimer win, and then got into too deep of waters. I think Day Tripper will be a great presser style and won't be caught on the lead, but letting others go do the dirty work and then run late. So the number 7 for me, Day Tripper at 15-1, can't beat it. And David Bell is firing quite well with 4 winners, 4 places, and 2 shows out of 16 runners. Can't really beat that. So the number 7 Day Tripper for me, I think this one's ready. I will be surprised if we see 15-1 based on some of the replay work I saw. It looks like even with the figures fitting, that 15-1 seems like a gift. If we can get anything over 8-1, take that to the bank. The other horse I'm going to be using is the number 1 Churchtown. Same reasons as mentioned above. I think it's going to get a great stalking trip and just close in. So 2 horses for me, pretty light, both A's, the 7 and the 1 to kick things off.
All right. And yeah, you could make an excuse. I mean, it was such a bad run. It's hard to make too much of an excuse, but Day Tripper last time, at least that was against older allowance foes, just sort of popped and stopped. Now back in against 3-year-olds. Very interested when you both make good cases for a horse that's going to be 15-1. Let's move to race number 8. We've got a valuable maiden special weight for 2-year-olds on the synthetic going 6.5. Drew, we'll keep it with you.
Yeah, I didn't fall in love with this race, and I'm going to go with Keen Flatter at 8-5. I think that has the best figures, some speed, and last out was outkicked by a horse that was stalking that one and just was with the pace flow. The contender was with the pace flow, so Keen Flatter was against it. So I think number 4 Keen Flatter makes a lot of sense, but I'll be using 2 backups. The number 3 Forest Buzz 4-1. Not a great first-time starter for the trainer, but looks to be really sharp and in form. And then also the number 8, Celentano. We'll go with that.
That's the 7.
Oh, sorry. Is it?
Yes.
Oh, yep. 7. Sorry. 8-1 in the morning line. DK and I both suffer from that. So the number 7, speed and faded last out and gets Lasix this time and was running against Keen Flatter. So we'll see what happens. Was well bet. And I think there might be some signal there too that maybe this horse needed that run and gets Lasix today as well. Maybe able to turn the tables on Keen Flatter, but I'm going to side with Keen Flatter on top. So 4 is an A, 3 and 7 as backups. Don't love the race. We'll try and get out with a little bit of a spread here.
Matt, what do you think? Do you have any stronger opinion than Drew here? And what numbers did you land on?
No, I'm similar. It's usually in a race where I see the horses that have run that have had a few tries. I like to go elsewhere and look for some first-time starters, look for some pedigree. I don't find it really in here, to be honest. So I did default to the 4 Keen Flatter as well. Again, I like that last race. I just think a repeat of that last race probably gets it done here. I did also include, again, another horse that's run. I'll give another shot on the synthetic is the 6 Uncaptured Moment. I thought that was a decent run. It's going to have to run. You're going to have to, step up a bit here with this field, but I like to give that horse another shot. And I also included the 3. So I'm going to go 4, 6 as A's. I'm going to back up with the 3, as Drew mentioned, Forest Buzz. The one thing I will add there, the Dam Honey Harbor's 18% on all-weather sprints, 50% in the money, and a positive 71% ROI. So, there's some pedigree there in terms of those all-weather sprints on the Dam side. With the 3, but a very difficult race, but I'm going to try to get by with the 4, 6 as A's and the 3 as B.
Yeah. And hey, Pete, real quick, I just have something to add. It's something I've noticed this year at Woodbine for whatever reason, and I don't know if it's trainer related, and if anyone can dig up the stats. I feel like there are more bullet workouts or fast, sharp workouts by horses that just cannot show it in the afternoon. And I don't know if that's the product of the training track or how trainers train, really holding back and then letting, a couple horses go. Don't worry about trying to go 46 flat out. So I don't know if you guys have picked up on that, but I think we'll be able to see with Forest Buzz whether or not this one shows up. But I just keep getting burned by it over and over again. So I'll leave on the backup ticket, but I just wanted to call that out that for whatever reason, the Woodbine training track has been flattering some of those mornings.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've seen some statistical studies of just workout tab, and the thing that I always come back to is that the fast 5 furlong work seem to be the ones that have signal. And I'm not sure that too much else does, but I don't know. Have you ever done any work with Racelands, Matt, on the effect, signal, or lack thereof with bullet workouts specifically? Is there any way to parse that data?
Yeah, there is. So there's a whole section on workouts where you can really get in depth on the, obviously distance, whether it's a gate drill, like you can go through all different kinds of scenarios. You can do a statistic where it shows like an average furlongs per day. That's like some of the stuff that I have, showing a progression of workouts for a first time starter. But I can look at that. So I just made a note of that. That's the stuff that I love to dig into. So taking a look at, bullet drills coming into a race at Woodbine specifically to see what the success is, and then start to drill into the charts and see if you can maybe see some patterns with trainers or kind of go from there. So, but you can definitely, there's a whole section on workouts that I've kind of scratched the surface on, but I have done more and more as the years have gone on.
That's so cool. That's so interesting. I didn't even realize that. We'll put in a plug. We might as well. We do have a promo code for folks interested to learn more about Racelens. If you go to our pretty link inthemoneypodcast.com/Racelens, if you are a new customer, you can get your first month for $1 with the promo code INTHEMONEY. And if you're a current customer, you can come back or extend your plan and get a 40% off of any of the unlimited subscriptions. That's promo code INTHEMONEY40. So for folks interested in doing the kind of deep dives that Matt is describing, and I know there's a bunch of you out there, go ahead and do that. Check it out and support our partners, because when you do that, you support us. Let's talk about race number 9, gentlemen. We've got a $25,000 claimer going 6.5 on the synthetic. Matt Vagvolgyi, will throw the ball back in your court for this one.
So 2 horses I'll use on the A line here is the 6 Master Spy, 8-1 morning line. I don't know if you'll get that, but who knows? I think it's stalk the pace. I think I don't necessarily see a fast pace here, but I think we'll sit in a nice spot behind the pace setter, who I do like, which is the 5. I think we'll get the lead, hand carved. Again, another horse that's proven to get to the lead and get it done. It's tough to do that on the synthetic here, route, sprint, but this horse has done it a couple of times. So I do like that. And again, that's the 5, hand carved. But the 6 Master Spy, I think it's sitting in a nice spot. Just like to give this horse another shot on the synthetic. Has run against much better as well. I think we'll find a softer spot here. So again, I think either one of those horses, I think closer to the front end, might get it done here. And if you look at on a trainer set on the 6 for Master Spy, Dretzer's 29% out of 65 starts off the claim, right? So that shows intent on where to put these horses. So some confidence there with this horse ending up here. So 6 and 5 on the A line. I did put the 8 Beyond Borders as a B. I'm not in love with this horse. I hope this horse takes a ton of money and runs off the board. But again, it's just one of those, like, it fits. This horse fits in this race. You can't get around it. This horse definitely fits. Got some races in the past that will get it done here. I'm just not in love with the current form. I'd like to go elsewhere, but as of now, a very much of a cop-out B of adding this horse in. But I just think the horse Beyond Borders, the 8, fits in this race. And, with opinions elsewhere at bigger prices, like we've talked before. I know the EV police might be circling my house right now, but I would like to include that horse and not get beat with some higher prices surrounding around it.
Got to be careful. You don't want to, don't want to mess with those guys.
Those black SUVs might be swirling around the house there. So, but I'm tucked back in the woods, Pete. Maybe it's protecting me.
You should be okay. You should be. They're not that tough. You'll be all right. Beyond Borders does make plenty of sense. I mean, last time under these conditions did win by 4, granted with what looked to be a pretty easy trip. That one, Drew Coatney, is 2-1 on the morning line. Are you with or against in Woodbine's 9?
I'm against. My eye was drawn. I mean, just go look at the number 2's overall figures. Earned 4 or 5 points higher. The number 2, Fanusili, sounds like an Italian word of some sort. But at 4-1, the number 2 for me, I think drops into class today and will be able to press and save ground. And I think those 2 Drexler horses you mentioned, I'll be using as backups, the 5 and the 6. I think those 2 may get in somewhat of set this up pretty much and go to the lead and really go hammer and tongs. We'll see how fast they go and what the rider instructions will be. So number 2, Fanusili as a top choice for me, and I'll back up with the 5 and 6, completely fading the number 8 Beyond Borders. I just don't see it graduated out of the N2L ranks and then comes here into the N3Ls, but soft fractions, lots of knocks. We can talk about it more, but I'm fading.
Fair enough. Let's go to the nightcap. 2-year-old maidens. This time we're going 7 furlongs on the turf. And if we're playing late picks, we'll ask you the key question, Drew. How are we going to get paid?
Yeah, I love the number 1 Imperial Star here. 20-1, wide open event. Why not take that rail horse who's flashed speed and dropped anchor last time? The jockey and trainer together are 3 for 10 right now with a $4 ROI. It's not huge sample size, I'm aware, but they're showing some positive signs. And I don't think it's crazy that this horse takes to the grass, gets the lead, and carries on with everyone trying to close. So the number 1 Imperial Star at 20-1, top choice for me. We'll also be using equally the number 9 Kaukaipuu. I even looked this up, listened to it, tried to pronounce it.
I'm glad you had to say it, Drew, because I listened to multiple replays and could not get that horse right.
Kaukaipuu, right? Isn't it
Kaukaipuu? Yes, it is. And it's a Finnish word meaning wanderlust or desiring other places that you're
I didn't go that far, but
that's impressive.
So, yeah, my pronunciation's terrible, but at least I can do some research. So I think the horse continues to nibble at improvements and gets Lasix today. Not a crazy result if this one wins. And then the one I mentioned earlier at the top of the show is the number 7 Mythical Storm for Cassie. Big purchase price, has the workout on the turf under her belt, and comes out with Lasix and a strong gate drill to back that up as well. 2 back and husbands aboard. So this one could be pretty interesting. I'm excited to watch the number 7 Mythical Storm, see if she'll take to grass as a 2-year-old. But those are the 3 I'm using equally: the 1, the 9, and the 7 for me.
Definitely interesting to see Cassie put the filly in against the boys here. He's been doing very well and making the right calls with his first-time starter, so I don't think you can rule that one out. Matt, how do you see our nightcap?
I would say similar to Drew, and we're on the same long shot here. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's a pet angle of mine. I do love to see a horse that really just fires hot fractions early, kind of just folds tent late and just wraps up on the horse. But what happens after, right? Is the horse coming back in 180 days? No, this horse is coming back in 13 days. I think that's a vote of confidence to say, you know what? We got caught up on some speed. We finally got a turf race that we like here. Let's get this horse on the turf and let's send him from the inside. So I hope that's the instructions, and I'm happy to lose by 50 lengths by going to the lead and doing the same. But I want this horse to send. I think there's confidence coming back that quick, getting this horse on the turf for the first time. And like Drew said, in a very wide open race. So I'm a fan of the 1. I did use the 9 as well, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce. I'm going to defer on that one. Again, it's tough to find different places to go here because it is a wide open race. But again, I think this horse is knocking on the door, probably going to get the softest field this horse has run against. Again, I think should compete and should be close to the pace, and I think might get it done here. But, again, it's going to be a much shorter price than what you've seen in this horse in the past, but a softer spot. So I think so. The 9 and 1 I'm going to use as A's. I am going to back up with the 4 and the 11, the 4 Elena. Second time out, again, similar, showed speed, faded a bit late, gets on the turf for the first time. Certainly want to see that horse get to the turf. And then the 11, I thought, a couple of good races. M. Jane sticks here on the 11 Fighting Irish. And third start could be the charm. So that outside post, not great, but certainly want to see how this horse does. So I'm going to back up with the 4, the 11, but the 9 and 1 are going to be A's for me, Pete.
You make a good point about the 9 Kaukaipuu and facing a weaker field. The way they do their maidens up in Woodbine, you'll see they run for a variety of different purses. This one, every one of the 5 starts for Kaukaipuu has been at the 125,000 purse level. In here, 95,000. It's going to be a softer group just by logic. And, you might see 5 starts, 3 seconds and say, does he really want to win, etc. I don't think that's fair. When they drop, they tend to run to their numbers. And if Kaipu does, definitely looks like a contender. So good stuff from the team on that one. Really appreciate your guys' time this morning. And, we'll be back next week with a lot more from Woodbine. Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Next up in the show, very happy to be joined by a man we talked to in the early week shows, typically reviewing. We had a good chat about Del Mar and Saratoga. We've got some nice feedback on. But late week, he often comes on here to talk about Monmouth Park. He is Nick Tammaro. Nick, what's going on?
Doing great, my friend. Glad to be with you to talk on what's thankfully a little bit slower weekend after the busy summer rush, but still plenty of fun action.
Yeah, there's good stuff going on. I think in the intro to the show, I suggested that Dallas Baker might be here. He spun us. I don't know what's more important than talking Monmouth Park with us, but he'll be back with us for next week. But he's leaving this analysis of the win early pick 5 in our capable hands. And it kicks off at 12:15 on Saturday at Monmouth Park with this 2-year-old filly maiden claimer going 6 furlongs on the dirt. Field of 6 goes postward. What numbers shall we have on our tickets to kick off this win early pick 5, Nick?
Anybody who's been following these shows closely, and of course, I'm sure all of you have, that Juan Avila has been not necessarily the most popular character around these parts for quite some time. And that has a lot to do with the fact that his outfit and some of his owners have done very well in the fixed odds market. And so laden, who's the 5, is the morning line favorite at 5-2. You're going to see this filly open in the fixed odds market under 2-1. Sort of inviting in some of the potential action for people who do want to take up that approach. This is a relatively weak maiden claiming event. Laden workouts look fine. Juan Avila's obviously been very good with first-time starters. He even had a winner up at Saratoga. Madeline's Grogu on the outside is the best of the experienced lot. Those seem like the right 2 in the pick 5. Gun of Gold, if you have the budgetary capability, would probably be the 3rd choice. So I would keep it relatively simple and make it 5, 6 as A's and 3 as a backup. You also have another Avila entry in the 2 Amalfi Lady, who debuted against 25s and is now moving up in class. Not necessarily the most encouraging sign there.
All right, we'll kick that one off. 5 and 6 on the A line, and we'll move to race number 2, where we've got Jersey bred starter allowance types, 3 and up, going 1 mile on the turf. We got a fuller field here. 10 go to post. How narrow can we get?
Yeah, the state bred races are interesting in that a lot of times they're not that competitive because you get Jersey breds of varying ability. And this looks like a situation where the 5 one-time Willard is going to be virtually impossible to beat. This is going to be another runner that opens up in the fixed odds market under even money. John Stevens' trainee did just about everything but win last time out. Did have a pretty soft trip, setting a moderate pace before getting outgained a little bit late, but it looks as if he'll have pretty much the same scenario this time around. There's very little speed signed on, and I think that should allow Jairo Rendon, who really is the best turf jockey at Monmouth, in my opinion, having paid a little bit more attention this year. I think it'll give him the opportunity to put this son of micromanage on the lead. I think that would make him awfully tough to handle.
All right, the strong shout there. And if you're interested in more specifics, we don't have all the fixed odds prices at the minute, as we often do on these shows. But if you go to monmouthbets.com, if you're a Jersey person, you can bet right on there. But even if you're not a Jersey person and you want to get a little bit of signal about what the fixed odds market is doing as we get closer to these races and throughout the betting, go ahead and go to monmouthbets.com and take a look. It can definitely inform when you're putting tickets together in bets like this win early pick 5, monmouthbets.com. Let's move on to the hinge of this win early pick 5. It's race number 3, $25,000 maiden claimers, fillies and mares 3 and up, 6 furlongs on the dirt. This is a spot where there's another heavy favorite on the morning line in the number 4 Song Saver. Nick, are you with or against?
Yeah, you're not going to get a Penn National Invader pretty heavily favored too often at Monmouth, but it does look like that scenario. And from a speed figure perspective, this daughter of Super Saver really is a standout. She's earned 2 Beyer speed figures over 50 in her last 2 starts, including a win back in early July, from which she was disqualified for interference. This is a move up in class, no doubt about it. I mean, 25s at Penn National are a weaker lot than 25s at Monmouth. So we'll see if she can handle that jump. I wanted to try the 2 Tilted Tiara as an alternative coming in. Speaking of horses coming in from lesser circuits, this one from the Royal Meet at Timonium that just concluded last week. She showed a great deal of speed last time out before weakening a bit late. That's 6.5 furlongs around, I guess, at least 2 turns, perhaps more at the bull ring in Timonium. So we'll see if she can get the lead and maybe forget to quit. Claudio Gonzalez's runners have had a very, very strong summer, and the Bug Boy is on board here. That might help get this one loose in the opening stages and just might forget to quit. I actually thought the other interesting horse was the other Kate DeMasi trainee, the 7 Roland and Controlling, who looks like she just might be gradually improving, and she could be the right alternative to the favorite. I'll make the favorite a backup and use the 2 and 7 as ace.
All right. I like the sound of that. Chance to maybe beat the favorite there as we move on to the last 2 races in the Win Early Pick 5. Next up, race 4. We've got an allowance race for 3 and up fillies and mares going 6 furlongs on the dirt, and fairly short field with 6 runners going postward. On the morning line, above par, 2-1, Liberated Lady 5-2 suggests that they might be vying for favoritism. What do you like in here?
Yeah, it looks that way. Above par has gotten really good lately and seems to be going up the ranks class-wise in a pretty steady fashion for Gerald Bennett. This is a much tougher race, though. I mean, to talk about a 2 other than versus a starter allowance event, we're just talking about a totally different group of horses. That being said, I mean, speed figure-wise, she's really gotten better and continues to, and there's something to be said for that. Jerry Hollendorfer moving a Liberated Lady back to the dirt off a turf try last time out, where she didn't perform badly by any means. I do think she's a candidate for the top honors as well. Probably benefits a bit from drawing outside of above par, who does probably want to do her best running on the lead. You also have Trade Secret, who comes in off a claim for Phil Antonacci. This horse won a $50,000 claimer at Saratoga last time out, so the connections were willing to reach in at a pretty high level. And pace-wise, that was a really strong pace. This horse stayed on all the way to the finish. I thought ran very well that day for Steve Asmussen. Tough guy to claim off of, but Antonacci is a trainer who's relatively new to the game, having, I believe, worked as an assistant for Wesley Ward, but looks like he's doing some pretty good work. I wouldn't sleep on that one. You might get Paco at a relatively decent price, too, for a filly that should be sitting just off the pace. I do think the principals are the 3 and 4. I'll use them, and I'll use the 2 as a backup.
All right, makes sense. Let's move to our pay leg, race number 5, where we've got maiden claimers at the $16,000 level on the turf going a mile and a 16th, and a big full field signed on. How are we going to get paid?
Yeah, you know, you have a few New York invaders, and obviously most of them are looking for softer spots after difficult Saratoga meets, and that includes the one for Bill Morey, Strike Price, who goes second off a layoff, and I think this is the softer spot that this horse has been in need of. The problem is he's really never run that well, you know, regardless of where it's been or what level it's been at. So I'm looking for him to improve to an extent second off the bench. We'll see if he can do that enough to be a factor here. I think the 4 Dream Astray is in many ways the horse to beat. New to the care of Darian Rodriguez. He does really well with trainer changes of all types. And I think that this horse will get the right kind of trip from just off the pace. There's enough speed in here to set things up. You have to respect Pivotal Run as well for George Weaver. This is one who actually won a maiden race over a year ago and was disqualified from that. It was during the NHC in 2021. And there was a lot of consternation in the ballroom as this one got taken down for interference. Still looking for that elusive maiden win now, some 6 starts later. I think Dream Astray is kind of the hinge for me in the pick 5 in the last leg. He'll get the right trip. I'll use the 1 and 5 as backups, and I'm not really going to go too deep beyond that. It looks like a race where you could end up throwing a lot of good money after bad.
So the 4 on the top line and the 1 and the 5 to close things out in this win early pick 5. Again, if you want more insight on the fixed odds prices, monmouthbets.com. Any closing thoughts from you, Nick, before we wrap this segment?
No, just a couple of weeks left at Monmouth. They've got some nice stakes races these last couple of weeks, and then racing will shift over for turf-only action at the Meadowlands.
That now stakes one that I mentioned in the ad that I probably just read
right
before this, that has in the past couple of years produced some runners for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, one to keep an eye on. And yeah, the Meadowlands hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to be offering a bunch of coverage of that meet more than we've ever done in the past. So fingers crossed on that, and we'll see how it shakes out as we get into this transitional time of year in New Jersey racing. And we thank our friends at Monmouth Park and the Bet Makers for supporting us all year long. Nick, we'll see you very soon.
Sounds great, my friend. Thank you.
That's going to do it for this edition of the show. I want to thank all of today's guests for their contributions. We'll thank our founding partners, the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, the amazing work they do with humans and horses through the Second Chances Foundation. Please give generously to them at our link, trfinc.org/players. Also, 10 Strike Racing. Got to hang out with Marshall and Clay and a lot of the 10 Strike partners this summer. And around here, we always like to root for the purple and black. Most of all, though, want to thank all of you for listening, making these shows so much fun to do, or viewing. If you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate that as well. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officers, Jonathan Kinchin. Got to throw in a quick shout out to producer Craig for shooting all the right buttons. Not really shooting all the right buttons, pushing all the right buttons. It's probably a better way to say that. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your photos.